My name is Janet Travers, and I'm a board member of the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild. Go Padres. Today I'm talking to Tamara Merrill, a San Diego author and artist. Tamara, how did you decide what form or genre was right for you?
I like to experiment. So I write in a lot of genres. It just happens that my last two books have both been psychological thrillers. I write whatever I feel like writing. My published works are a wide range of genres, everything from children's literature through science fiction, etc., all the way to psychological thrillers.
The next thing that David Letterman would say was, how old were you when you started writing?
I was first published when I was 9.
Nine?
In American Girl magazine, I wrote a story about a cat, which I didn't own, but I pretended it was my cat, and it's pretty bad. But they published it, and once you see your byline, all you want is another one. So I've been writing commercially since I was 9.
Do you have a favorite genre? You just said you covered all these different genres.
Probably my most favorite thing is short stories with a twist. Like when it's going along and you think you know what's happening, and then in the last 3 paragraphs, you go, oh my God, the author just killed her.
That's wonderful. Do you base your characters on real people?
I don't mean to, but it's very difficult not to do that. Everybody you've ever met, everything that ever happened to you sneaks into writing fiction. So a quick one story. When I wrote Family Lies, there's a horrible, evil woman in it named Sylvia. And when the book came out, everyone in my hometown asked me if it's based on a particular person who I did not know. But I went out and met the person. And you know what? She was just as evil as Sylvia, but I had not known her before I wrote it.
If somebody comes up to you and says, is that me? What do you say?
I say, well, if I know you, then I'd probably say, could be, because things sneak in. And there'll be that night when we were sitting around the bonfire at the beach and you had a whole bottle of wine and we did something stupid. And that might have snuck into one of my books. But if I've never met you before, I say, no.
I need a friend coming up, like worried that you wrote about them saying, is that me? You tell the truth that yes, they.
Well, because I don't really know that it's them. So I say it's parts of you, but it's parts of all of everybody else I know too. None of my characters, except the Kingston Trio. When I read about the Kingston Trio, I base it on the real true Kingston Trio. But other than that, I don't base any character on an exact character, except in my book, Shadows in Our Bones. And in that case, it is based on real characters. It's a real historical event. I interviewed over 100 people before I wrote the book, and the characters used their own names, except for one family who asked not to have their name used, but it's still very much based on them and it's their story.
How hard is it to establish and maintain a career in fiction writing?
Extremely difficult, especially nowadays.
What
Ever
makes
since the self-publishing thing came along, the competition is stiff. I'm very fortunate because I started writing a long time ago, and I used to write for the women's magazines when they were really popular in the 70s and 80s. I established a name for myself then. And so it was easy for me to continue with an agent and move forward in my career. But it's not a simple thing. It's possible, but it's not simple.
you got an agent before your stories were published in women's magazines?
No, I got an agent because my stories were published in women's magazines. In those days, publishers wanted contact with an agent, and they actually hooked me up with my first agent. And I've had several since then. But once you get one, it's easier to get another one.
Just get the ball rolling. So you didn't have any end. It was completely by merit.
Yeah, I didn't have any ends at all, but you were able to send manuscripts over the transom, as they used to call it, which nowadays you really can't do that. You can't just send a book to a publisher, one of the big 5. You have to have somebody represent you in order to get the book read. But back in the 70s and 80s, magazines accepted everything from freelancers. Publishers would accept a full manuscript just being mailed to them in a box. There was no email. We didn't send anything email. And now, of course, it's not that way at all.
Today, you don't say give up to people who aren't published.
Absolutely not, because it is in fact possible. And writing is so much fun. And it's such a great expression of who you are and how you see the world. Excuse me, how you see the world and how events are happening in the world. But for it to be simple, no, it takes a lot of tenacity. There's lots of ways to be published to get you started. The internet's a great place to be published. All of those things like Substack and right at the top of my head, I can't think of anything else. But there are a lot of places where you can post stories and get feedback from the public and get your name known. And all of those readers of every blog you share with someone else, of every short story you post, of every nonfiction article you post, those are your potential readers. And you start to be a little bit seen and a little bit known. But marketing is tricky. Marketing is hard. It is. I'm not going to pretend it's not. And it takes up way more time to market a book. It takes me about 2 years to write a book. I'm not a fast writer. So I'm going to say it takes about 2 years to write a full length novel. But then you have to market it for the next 5 years. And then it kind of drops to your backlist. But as independent writers, you have to market it forever because you need to be known. Any website that you're selling on, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, doesn't matter. The big fast sellers go to the top of the list and your book is going to be further down the list. And you have to be clever about it.
Can you give us one tip? This is what I do. This is what you like.
The one that does the most good is being interviewed on a podcast that is a known podcast. Shadows in Our Bones, which is my most popular book. I was actually interviewed by NPR, and you can't beat that. I mean, that's like an in right there,
Did your sales really
Yes.
go up?
Yes.
I listen to NPR every morning.
Yeah. I do too. I listen to it all the time. I think that they do a great job. The other thing that really helped me, see, it all depends. It's like one of my daughters is a little bit famous. And just when Moore came out, she was on a TV show. And she said, my mom's new book published today, and said the name of it. And it was like, thank you so much. So it's kind of serendipitous for an independent writer. The thing that matters the most is to collect emails so that you can send out emails that are directed to people, because it is way more effective than any online marketing. Reviews, ask everybody for reviews, but getting reviews is hard. Most people don't review anything unless they don't like it. It's just how it works. Like if you buy something from Amazon, unless it is amazing and it's the happiest you've ever been, you probably don't put up a review. But if it broke the first time you used it, that's when you put up a review. So it's hard to get a good review.
When you ask somebody to write a review for you, you don't need a synopsis of the book. Are you getting just a few lines of this is the best thing in sliced bread? Or
It really depends on the person that gives the review. Some people write a huge essay, but even a review that is just stars or is just, I liked this, helps, because there are some places you can't even sell an independent book unless you've had a certain number of reviews on it before you approach them for sales.
well, why does it mean so much to have that? It's just a one-liner on a website.
I think because the powers that be decided that it's important. And that's why. I just heard recently that the big five are no longer going to put blurb endorsements on their books because so many of them are generated by AI now and they're not real blurbs. But it is whatever you can do to get it out. I do a lot of book clubs. That's actually, probably should have said that first. That's probably my best marketing thing.
How do you get invited to these book clubs?
It used to be all in person. So it was like somebody knew you, but now it's all on Zoom. So now I do them all over the world on any one of my books. I don't care. I don't have to fly to you. We're just on Zoom and we're talking. I did one out of India where I was in my pajamas. And so everybody that came to the book club wore pajamas that day too. So, but it was just, I mean, it is just getting known. And it's on my website that I do book clubs. And every one of my books has book club questions in the back and book club ideas in the back.
Well, do you have questions in the back of your book?
Just so that they may think, oh yeah, maybe I should recommend this to my book club. So
Did you write the question?
a lot of the questions come out of book clubs that I've done. So I'm in those, especially on my website, not the back of the book. The book doesn't get changed. If I do a book club and they want to talk about something specific, I'll go in and add that to my website for somebody else to be able to talk about it.
When do you write? What time of day and for how many hours?
I write the best now. I have two totally different answers. When I first started, I used to write from midnight till 6 a.m. and then go to work. Well, I'm not capable of doing that anymore. So,
It's 6 a.m.?
yeah, well, I had little kids and I had a full time job. And I would just catch a nap before midnight and then I would get up and write. But now I do most of my writing after I have a cup of coffee and walk the dog. And then I sit down at my computer. So I'm going to say like 8 o'clock in the morning until about noon. Not as diligent. I'm not as driven. It's okay if it takes me 2 years to write a book because in the meantime, I'm writing some blogs and I'm writing a short story or I'm editing the Guild Anthology or whatever my other life is. But if I'm crazy immersed in my story, then I write like a madman. I can sit at my desk for 10 or 12 hours and write. I almost never write longhand anymore. I have a notebook with me all the time and I jot down notes, but I don't write longhand anymore.
Do you plot your whole book?
No, I'm pretty much a seat of the pantser. I get an idea and I start writing and I get about probably a third to a half done with the book. And then I know the rest of it. Then I plot the rest of it.
Oh,
And
God.
it always changes. I know the beginning and I know what story I want to tell, but I just start telling it and I add characters as I'm going along that make sense to me. And by about the time I get to the middle, though, especially in a thriller, you have to throw out the red herrings and you have to be sure you clean them up and you have to get to the ending. But that's true of any book. Wish I was an outliner, but I'm not.
Who do you have? Who are your buddies or editors? Who's reading? How many people do you have read and give you feedback?
I'm in a writer's group. In fact, I'm in two different writers' groups. So whatever I'm writing, I don't necessarily send the whole manuscript to the writers' group, but each writers' group has very different perspectives. One of my writers' groups is almost all female and the other one is almost all male. And so it's pretty amazing the different, well, I guess it's not amazing. We're women. We know how this works, but women think quite differently than men, including what they interpret they see on the page. And I have a lot of male readers. I don't know why, but I think just because I write such despicable characters that people like to kind of go, ooh, look how mean that woman is. So I get feedback from both of them. I send it to an editor. I use Lisa Wolf, who is an incredible editor here in San Diego. So first I send it to Lisa Wolf and she does an edit of it. Then I send it to my special beta readers, which are like 3 people that I know that I really trust their opinion and have them mark up the manuscript also. I do another run through and then Lisa gets it again to clean it up and to make sure the content is all there. Then I send it to my agent and she runs it through a copy editor there also. So there's a lot of editing involved and there is still mistakes in every book. I think partly because we now edit on the computer and I think the proofing is less perfect on the computer. It's so easy to read on a screen and miss the little words.
And just the different usages for a word.
Yeah, exactly. I do while I'm writing, I have my computer read to me. Part of my writing process is I write, I have the voice on my computer read it back to me, which is kind of monotone, but it's really good for catching things like double words and things that just don't make sense. Before I send it to anybody to edit, it's been through that process over and over again where it reads to me. And strangely enough, I don't know if anybody's interested in this, but I just recently cloned my voice and I'm doing the audiobook for my newest book, Twisted Lives. And it's amazing what you find
Let's
out.
just 1 second. You cloned your voice.
Yes, the software product that I'm using. You read to the computer for an hour and then it creates an artificial voice and it sounds just like me. Doesn't make its hands
wow.
sound as much.
For inflection?
Yes, and it's getting better and better. This process is very interesting to me because this first time I ever did this. And so my intention is I'm going to send it out to my email list and say, hey, for $1, you can download this audiobook and I really, really want your feedback. Tell me what's good, what's bad, because this is the first time I've ever used AI to do this. It's not me reading the book. It's just my voice reading the book.
Was it very strange to hear it for the first time?
nobody sounds the way they think they sound. So when you hear it, it's quite different. But it is getting better and better. Although AI is getting better and better. It knows now that if the sentence ends in a question mark, you should raise the voice a little bit because it's a question. But some things are really funny. Like the particular software I'm using, if you have a hyphenated word, like I can't think of a hyphenated word right now, but
Self-doubt.
what?
Self-doubt.
Yeah, self doubt. Okay, so the AI would ring self hyphen doubt, which
Oh,
which is
what do you do?
you have to read it. So it's self no hyphen doubt.
You won't have to do that in the future.
Exactly. It's quite a learning experience, but I'm having fun with it.
How about the titles of your books? How do you choose the title of your
Uh,
books? Hard, all right.
Titles are so hard for me.
Okay, that's
I know a lot of writers that have the title almost first, and I just don't. They are very, very difficult for me to come up with for Shadows in Our Bones, which includes DNA testing and some things like that. I was actually in the hospital waiting for surgery, and the surgical nurse was talking to me, and I said, I'm trying to figure out the name of this book. And she was the one that came up with Shadows in Our Bones because it's about your ancestry and how whatever happened to your ancestors affects you today and society today. And so Shadows in Our Bones was the perfect title, just one more. That title came from my writing groups and myself and the beta readers. I mean, we must have had 40 book titles that I was sending out to people to look at and say, which one of these makes sense? It turns out just one more is really good because she's a serial killer. And every time she kills, she says, this is the last time.
love that.
Yeah. But I don't know. Twisted Lives, which is the last one, the entire time I wrote that, it was just called Jeremy, which would be a terrible title for the book. But it was how I started the manuscript. And so that's what was there. Excuse me while I get a drink over here.
You do any training? I've done a ton of it. If it's free, if it's going to make me a better person or tell me how to get rich, I'll watch a web thing.
You know what? I'm a sucker for all that stuff, but not the ones I have to pay for.
No, I mean for free.
Some of those are actually really good. I mean, I've learned a lot of little helpful tips on this. I use Scrivener to write in. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's probably the only class I ever paid for. Well, other than college, obviously, but that I ever paid for on the internet. But I wouldn't be able to use Scrivener if I hadn't made myself do the class and the exercises and look at the video and watch it again and again until I figured out how to use it. But I watch all of them, especially ones about marketing. We are going to give you 10,000 marketing tips and your book is going to be a bestseller. They give you the same 10 tips that you already know yourself. But then I watch them all because maybe I'm going to pick up one thing.
Being a part of the guild, San Diego Writers and Editors Guild, it was very generous of you, who's a very busy and accomplished writer, to edit it. How hard is it for you to choose the stories and edit the anthology?
This year's the 13th edition, which is about good versus bad luck. It's an excellent group of short stories. It is extremely time consuming. Marcia, who used to do this like for the first 11 issues, I mean, I don't know how that woman did that long and that much. I mean, it is very time consuming. You're working with the writers and with other editors back and forth and back and forth. There's nothing easy about it. It's a big task. It's very fulfilling as it comes to completion, but it takes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours for the team to get the edition out. Yeah. I could write my own book faster.
So this anthology, is it just short stories?
It is short stories only. There are 37 short stories by 29 San Diego members. And they don't all live in San Diego, but they're all somehow connected to San Diego and they are members of the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild.
So there's a different theme each year?
It's always been a different topic each year. But with this 13th edition, we made a decision to go with one genre at a time on one topic at a time. So this time was short stories. I don't know what it will be next time, but it could be memoir. It could be poetry and memoir. It could be essays only. It could be novellas. It could be short stories again. We don't really know, but we're trying to come up with a cohesive anthology to encourage people to read it and to join us so that they can be published in it also.
How does copyright work on that?
Authors do not surrender any copyright. The copyright on the book itself, the anthology, is the guild, but we don't take even first publishing rights from any of our authors because we encourage them to put their work elsewhere. I do ask them not to publish it in another anthology until ours comes out.
When anybody sends out a short story, let's just use
Yeah.
that. When you send it out, is your work protected? I remember that a million years ago, somebody told me that you have to mail a copy back to yourself, and that's proof that it's yours.
Because you don't have to do that anymore because it's on your computer with a big trail there about how you wrote this. But truthfully, Janet, I hate to say this, but if I took your story and I changed it 10%, which is not very much, it's now my story. But there's only, what I think, 7 stories that people tell over and over again. There's the hero's journey and there's this and this. I mean, there's like 7 classic things. And yet there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books that are totally different inside each one of those stories.
Do you give yourself a break and do you feel guilty when you're not writing every day? Do you say, oh, I don't have to do it today?
I say it, but I feel guilty. And if I haven't written for a while, I feel really guilty. And like Twisted Lies came out the 1st of April, and I have not seriously started the next book yet. I have an idea and I put that into the very beginning, but mostly I'm doing this audiobook and I'm doing marketing for Twisted Lives and I'm finishing up the anthology and I'm having dinner with my friends.
Yeah, well, so you're younger. I'm finding I do feel guilty if I skip a day or two, way to live life.
But it's true. It's almost like exercise. I used to be so good. I mean, I've never been an exerciser. My endorphins don't get excited by that whole thing. I like a good book better than I like to exercise. But every day of my life, as long as I can remember, I've done this series of yoga stretches, and it takes like 10 minutes. That's it. And COVID came along and I don't know why I thought it would make any difference, but I just quit doing it. And I got completely out of the habit of doing it. And now when I do it and then I go 2 or 3 days without it, I have to start over. I have to force myself to do it again. And writing's the same way. And that's what I mean. It's like, I love it when I'm writing. And yet sometimes it's like, you have to go sit down and write now. And I think, yeah, maybe I'll do my email instead. Oh, good. Somebody called me. I get to talk on the phone. And
Oh, good. This is why we want interviews because we want to know that Tamara Merrill feels the same way. My phone rings.
So yeah, I say, oh wait, I need another cup of coffee. I'll be right back. I'm not a procrastinator. I think people that used to work for me probably thought I was a maniac slave driver, but inside my own head, I'm feeling bad because I spent all that time in that meeting and I didn't get this done. We're really hard on ourselves.
You're very demanding on yourself, but is that why possibly you are successful?
Of course. I mean,
Duh. That's a duh.
yes, but probably you should never let up on yourself completely. But sometimes I have to force myself to sit here and finish a paragraph. One of the things I always do, this really helps me. But whatever I write that day, I write the first paragraph of whatever comes next. And then I can close down the computer and or go play with my email or play with AI and make pretty pictures and make myself write the beginning of what comes next. And sometimes when I sit down to write again, I don't like what I wrote and it goes away, but it gives me an in immediately. And that's how I trick myself. It's like that something's already been started and it's hard to do it. A blank page is the most intimidating thing in the world. It's like, oh, nothing I have to say is worth it.
Is there a minimum amount of words that you will force if you're not in the mood?
Now, I'm not a word counter. I know a lot of people make themselves write 1,000 words a day, 10,000 words a day, whatever it is. I don't make myself do it. Sometimes I write 1,000 words and 2 of them are good. Some days I write 5,000 words and all 5,000 are good. I mean, you just don't know. And so I don't count words and I don't ever count words like a thriller is supposed to be between 65 and 80,000 words when you're done with it. And I know that in my head, but I just write until the story's done. And then if it's too long, there's undoubtedly something you can cut out of it. I never write too short. My bigger issue is writing too long. But it would be the same thing if you wrote, you should finish the story and it was only 30,000 words. Well, then it's either a novella or you got to go in and find 30,000 more words to talk about in this story.
You ever want to change what's already in
Oh,
your book?
especially, I have a trilogy that's came out in the 2014, 15, and 16, and it still sells every single month. And I really would like to rewrite those books. I really, really would. But it's more important to write something new than it is to go back and check it because you change as a writer and just because the society changes. Like a short story that was published in the 1970s was probably about a housewife who had children or not and was at home. And by the late 1970s, early 80s, it was about a housewife that wanted to go back into the workforce. And then it was a powerful woman in the workforce. We never wrote about divorced people. If it was going to be in the women's magazines, the divorce was just out of question. Somebody you get out of death, it could be a widow, but it couldn't be a divorcee. Well, by 1979, you could write about divorces. You could write about, still couldn't put any sex in. The women's magazines never let you put any sex in.
So what magazines you?
Like Red Book, McCall's, Women's Ladies Home Journal. I always wanted it to be published in the Saturday Evening Post, but I never had anything accepted. That was kind of like a pinnacle of writing for me. I would have liked that. Or the New Yorker, but I don't really write New Yorker kind of stuff. I'm not edgy enough for the New Yorker.
Is there anything that was not necessarily embarrassing, but some stuff that you go, oh my God?
The things that make me cringe,
Yeah, that's the word.
they are the things like then and than being the wrong word. You
Oh,
know, I can hear my grandmother's voice telling me to use proper English. So when I see it and it's already in print, that's really hard because believe it or not, it passes by editors all the time.
their job too.
I know, but I haven't picked up a book my own or anyone else's in 10 years that I don't find a typo. And I'm serious. I mean, it can be Jodi Picoult, it can be Louise Penny, it could be
Wow.
Stephen King, and there'll be a typo. It's just a change in how the editing has been done. But probably the most embarrassing thing, which actually wasn't my fault, but it doesn't matter, was when Just One More came out, the first printing of it, the title is Just One More Psychological Thriller, and psychological is spelled wrong. Okay, that's embarrassing. It's on the cover. That's embarrassing.
Oh,
And of course, it's sold. So through my website, I sent out a thing that said, I'm really sorry. This first printing came with the error in it. And if you'd like another copy, one person asked for another copy. Everybody else was so nice and they just went, no, I'm calling it a collector's item. But so I know there's a bunch of those books around the psychological spelled wrong.
your education, were you an English major?
No, I started out like every other woman my age. You could be a secretary, a nurse, a school teacher, or a wife. I mean, that was kind of what you were allowed to be. And so I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I thought this would be good. And I thought I wanted to teach at the primary level. I got a teaching credential, but I got a double major. So I had a BS in education and a BA in fine arts. I had these little children. And I found out that children are way too much when you have them in school and you have them at home at night.
No.
So I switched to what we used to call the junior high level. And I taught math and science. And then I was recruited by Noble Oil Corporation to be a trainer. And I was earning $12,500 a year and they offered me $25,000. And I said yes.
How did they recruit you?
I was doing one of those continuing education things and I was leading a training. And someone heard me talking and they offered me a job as a trainer. And
Wonderful.
it was double my salary and I had 3 children to care for, so it was great. And I've never looked back after that. Life is just serendipitous. Go with the flow.
But you had always been a big reader and you always wrote on the side.
Yes. I have written and published my whole life, sometimes a lot in a year, sometimes not. I've written a whole bunch of IT manuals, how to do stuff in internet technology. So it's just kind of whatever, but I like fiction.
Over nonfiction, obviously.
Yeah. I read everything, but my favorite reading is also fiction. I probably shouldn't admit it with the way the world is right now, but I love apocalypse books. I'd like the whole world to have ended for some reason, and now we're starting over. So I read all of those. I don't write those, but I read all of those.
Do you find writing energizing or does it exhaust you?
Probably energizing at a particular moment, like when you get up from the computer because you sat there doing this and your neck is and your hands are, then that's not energizing. But the moment your body starts moving again, your brain is going, oh, and then I'm gonna let's see if I'll do this. So I would say energizing. Yeah.
I just joined the master class series and Amy Tan said,
Mhm. Oh my God, she's so good. Yeah.
I love her. She said, if you have writer's block, that means you're a writer. How do you feel about writer's block?
I feel very fortunate that I don't suffer from writer's block, but I think it's because when I am blocked on something, I write something else. And I think that unblocks me. And not because I plan it that way, but like if I'm struggling with something, I write a bad poem because I'm a terrible poet. I like those Silverstein kind of poems that everything rhymes and they have a little story. But that's so different than what else I write. Or I just write a long email to somebody or I write a blog or I write an opinion piece or a review for somebody. And then when I get back, I don't have writer's block anymore. But I've never had a period in my life where I go like a year and I'm blocked and I just cannot write. But I also know it's very, very real. And if it is happening for you, my advice would be don't think about it. I mean, don't concentrate on I have writer's block. Just concentrate on what can I do today.
It's a really good idea. You learn to put that story on hold and go write something, just have like, oh, let me just go do this for a little while.
And my other piece of advice is I read really a lot. And whatever I am writing, I don't read in that genre during the time I'm writing because other people's work will sneak into your work. And that isn't really what I want. But because you're reading a book that's very similar, it's really easy to have your story change to match that story when I didn't mean to do that. So I'm careful not to do that.
How does your faith slash ethical outlook inform your writing?
Think that, wow, that could be a really in depth question. Usually my opinions get into my writing. I hope my own ethical behavior is better than the behaviors that I write about. I sometimes say to people, inside of me is a 15-year-old girl going, yeah, I don't wanna, and not gonna. And so maybe along those lines, this is how I believe and how I think I conduct my life. So I let my characters do things I would never do to release. I am not a particularly spiritual person. So it would be more like, I don't want to put evil into the world, but I write about some pretty evil people. And they're usually the characters in my books that I really like. I don't know, Janet. That's a big question.
You never find the feedback you're getting is this is a really good character. I really like this. It must be you.
Oh, yes. That's a book club question. Always in book clubs, they ask you that one. But I think that a little bit of you, of course, leaks into it. But I don't think any of my characters are based solely on me. I don't think they think like I do. They probably talk like I do. I'm Southern California, so the word really pops into my dialogue all the time. And I have to go down and take that out because how many times in a paragraph should you really say, really? But none of my characters are based on me, nor do I relate to any of them as being me. Because I do relate to characters in books I read. I think they reflect me more than what I write reflects. I don't write anything that I don't believe is possible. In Twisted Lives, the woman has a baby and she's not cut out for motherhood. And I had people once I was writing it say, you can't say that. Every mother loves their baby right away. No, they don't. And the truth of the matter is that it's really good to have a book that doesn't tell you you're wrong when you're feeling bad about something. So when people criticize it along those lines, I'll just say something like, well, in my experience, it does happen. And fortunately, you haven't met anybody that's having that problem.
What a good answer. So what percentage are you making up, do you think?
100% of my characters are made up, but 100% of a particular scene or dialogue is based on how I really see people reacting and talking.
You also said that both men and women like your work.
And
Excuse me, not like your work, but they get it. How about that?
I think that I write primarily female contemporary fiction,
Okay.
but I always have male characters in it. And I find I have a lot of male readers who relate to the situations. And so I know everybody's experiencing the same kind of thing. Life is hard. You run into situations all the time. I think they also like that my female characters are pretty straightforward, which is not necessarily true with female conversation. Women tend to play nice most of the time, and my characters tend to tell it like it is a little more, because I'm a tell it like it is person. I mean, I won't be nasty and I won't hurt you on purpose, but I probably will, in fact, state my mind. If you say to me, "Do these pants make my butt look big?" I'm going to say,
Really?
I'll say it as tactfully as possible. The blue pair you had on yesterday were a better fit. Men really like Just One More, which is a serial killer, a young lady that kills men, but men love that book.
But I like killing books too. I don't know why. I felt weird that but I really do.
But I like movies. I like thriller movies and apocalypse movies and evil kidnapping movies and romantic comedies and movies with no social redeeming value whatsoever and movies where I really learn something and feel like I've become more aware for some reason.
So your books in Southern California?
No, Twisted Lives is in Washington. Just One More is New York City and Boston. Family Lies starts on the East Coast and ends on the West Coast. I mean, that's a series. Family Lies is like 3 books. So no, they're based wherever the story fits. And my short stories are based anywhere.
You have a book of short stories published?
Yeah, I'm in 16 different anthologies, I think. But I've never published a whole book of short stories. That's probably something I will do.
Yeah.
I have a stable of them, and the ones that were back in the day when the magazine got the rights to them, those are all now old enough that all the rights are back to you. So I could put those in. Do you know the author from Ireland, Maeve Midgley?
No.
I think she's gone now, probably has been gone quite a while. But she was also a writer of short stories in women's magazines. And my stories are very similar to hers. And 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, time flies, they published a book of her short stories. And it's a nice read. It's nice to read stories that are nice, but I'll probably publish here's the nice stories, here's the evil people stories, because I like to write them.
This is more of a business question. You do have the rights to all your stories. This time has passed.
I have first publication rights are the only thing I ever sell. All other rights revert back to me now. I have the right to take any piece of that book the minute I've sold it to them and use it somewhere else after the book is published.
If you've had any bad reviews, I like to put it that way instead of saying,
Oh, I get bad reviews.
be honest, like, how does it feel? How do you feel?
It hurts so much. Devastating.
Hurts so much. I'm glad you said that.
And then try to wipe it out of your brain afterwards. Harsh reviews are, and they don't even have to be very harsh. It can be a pretty mild rebuke, and you still go, "Oh, they killed my baby," So it is. They're hard. I'm not even going to pretend it's not hard. When you get a bad review, it hurts. So shake it off and move along. And don't believe everything everybody says anyway. This too shall pass.
We're trying to learn from you in this interview, just how it works for you. And also, you're kind enough to say what you think to help other people because you've already done it. Just make it a little bit easier. Isn't that what we're doing?
Well, it's exactly what we're doing. And that's exactly what the Guild does. It's a coming together of writers and editors and other creative people in the publishing arena who are there to support and learn from each other. The Guild is a great organization to join, whether it's our guild or some other writing guild around the nation. It is your fellow people. And that doesn't mean everybody in the guild is going to be really nice and love your book, because there's always going to be people that don't love what you write. But that doesn't make it bad. And most of us at the end of the world are pretty supportive of one another. We don't really reach out to hurt you. Something might come out of your mouth that hurts, but you didn't really do it to hurt somebody.
Like when you have to critique somebody else's work.
Exactly. But critiquing is so important. I think most writers groups, we all try to say, maybe you could improve this, and have you considered showing instead of removing the sentence and like that? Because it isn't to take away another writer's voice, and it's not to make their voice sound like your voice. The whole idea is to help people continually improve their writing. And it really does improve your writing to hear all of these different perspectives. And it tells you what you need to write. I was talking about this woman that isn't thrilled to have had a baby. And after I got that critique, I'm sure I added some things in there to make it be more understandable of what she was going through.
That benefited you.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So critiquing of something that you might rebel against can still be really, really helpful because we only can understand from our own perspective. Ever since we learned to speak or to draw on the wall with a stick or whatever we did, we've been telling the same stories, but we tell them from the perspective of our own lives and from our own education and from our own experiences, which is why they all read so differently. And it's so much fun to be a reader. I think being a reader is probably the most fun thing you can do in life because just constantly pick up a book and enter somebody else's world. And I like that. And I don't feel that way about mine. I hope when they pick up my books, they enter my world for however long it takes them to read the book. And they walk away from it going, ooh, I like that. And maybe I keep some of it and maybe it only lasts for 10 minutes. But while they're reading it, I like to think that they're in my world with me.
The satisfaction must be wonderful.
Well, it is when you talk to your fans and they say nice things to you.
Like they got it, they read it.
Yeah, exactly. Although, Janet, you know what? It's really funny because I do a lot of book clubs. And sometimes they get things that I didn't even know were in there. They'll say something to me about a character, about how they reacted to something. And I think, wow, I didn't even think about that. Maybe that's true, but I wasn't trying to say that.
You pretend that you did it on purpose?
I am honest enough to say, wow, interesting, but I didn't even think about that.
Don't you find a lot of older literature can be very lengthy,
Gosh.
drawn out? Are you a scanner?
When I was a kid, I was in the hospital for a long time, so I learned to read, and I read very, very fast. When you read fast, do you know what the Woods speed reading thing is? There was this woman that developed a speed reading technique, and basically it's scanning. So yes, I read fast and I scan a lot, but I also skip a lot. If you're going on and on about the weather or the color of the drapes, I just skip that part. So
Ah.
if it's a sex scene, I get the gist. I just skip it and jump to, okay, it's done. Because so I admit that I am a skipper of things and sometimes have to, like, especially if I'm talking to somebody about a book, I have to go back and say, okay, let me read that chapter that you think was so wonderful. Because truthfully, I skipped it because I thought he was talking about nothing but the drapes. So
That is so interesting to me because the guilt, I can't take it.
I write very sparsely. I get in trouble all the time from my writers groups with, we need to know what color dress she's wearing. And it's like, why? To me, it's irrelevant. I would rather picture the character in my head and see them the way I see them. I mean, I want some stuff. If you're an interviewer that's wearing a San Diego Padres hat, I want that kind of description. But I don't want 3 pages of why you're wearing the hat or how you determine to wear it or whether you put it to the left or to the right. Those are things I skip over.
That's an argument that comes up a lot. It's fun to butt heads and have these discussions. I need to know more about her. And you're kind of saying, what I gave you was enough. Is that what you're saying?
And that's how I feel about it. What I gave you was enough. This character is going to grow and change throughout the book. But if my writing, you say to me, I had no idea this woman was 35 years old, then I know that somewhere back there in the beginning, I need to strengthen it. If her age is important, but I don't want a long sentence that says she's 35 and she likes the color green and she wears this and she got highlights. I want to build that through the story. I don't want a big description about what you look like.
But what is important might be age, because you have to get a perspective of where they are in life, economic status.
Yes. But I want those things to build both in my own writing and in the writing that I read. A long time ago, I had a teacher, I don't even know when I had this one, but somewhere back in my English classes. And she said, respect the intelligence of your reader. You don't have to show them everything. And I try to remember that. If you are writing a sequence where Tamara got out of the car, closed the door, walked up the driveway, climbed the stairs, opened the front door, went into the kitchen, uh, uh, all you have to say is she drove into the driveway, parked the car, and then went in to make dinner. I don't need to know every single step of it. I probably don't even need to know the whole thing I said in that last sentence, because my reader knows that I drove home and now I'm cooking dinner. And they don't have to know every step I took in between that. And that's respecting the intelligence of the reader to understand that. You don't have to tell them every time they go to the bathroom. You don't have to tell them every time they brush their teeth. Well, you certainly don't need to tell them every time they had a thought either, unless it's relevant to your story, and then tell them.
A lot of these cliches get to me. You're obviously a very seasoned writer and stuff, but I keep hearing kill your darlings, POV, show don't tell. We need to know. I'll just use those three. What do you think?
I think it's all well and good to remember all of those things. And if everyone hates your darling, then you probably need to reread it to see whether you've made your point. That doesn't mean you need to kill them. It just means, did I make the point I wanted to make or not? And I feel that way about all of those things. It is like painting a picture. If I paint a picture of the ocean, my color of the ocean is going to be a little bit different than the ocean itself. It's going to be a little bit different than the woman at the easel next to me, and a little different than the man at the easel on the other side of me. And all of those ways are right. Writing is a creative process. If we just wanted an encyclopedia, we have those. We're good with that. We don't have to just repeat exact fact, because it's a creative endeavor. And I think every movement in your book and every piece of dialogue in your book should be relevant to the character that is doing that dialogue or is in that scene. But I don't need you to tell me that it's relevant to them. I need to know that because you've developed this character. So my only rule would be develop your characters honestly. And if you have a character that's got false emotion, allow it to be false emotion, because that's building the character honestly. But if I made my character do something because my writing critique person said that she shouldn't do this, then that's not honest, and it's going to change my character in a way that doesn't match my story.
You're still going your inner,
That's it. That's what I'm saying. All of those little platitudes are very nice. All of us need your things pointed out. Sometimes it's like you're just telling or you're just showing or whatever it is. But in general, I think everything is a balance, and it is a balance that is perfect with your type of writing. Now, the one rule I would say is break every rule. Break every rule. Who cares? Can't have a dangly participle because my grandmother would turn over in her grave. In modern English, we have dangly participles all the time, but I can hear my grandmother. So when I'm critiquing somebody, I go, move this, rearrange this sentence so you don't have this dangle. But it doesn't make it wrong. It's just my own prejudice there. So
it's just a break all the rules, because that comes up a lot.
if you read bestsellers, and I realize there's some best-selling authors I would not consider excellent writers, but they are, because enough people love their way of writing, that the fact that they broke some rules getting there works.
So it's your choice to keep it or not.
It's always the writer's choice. But breaking rules is a good thing. I think it's good breaking them in my own life. I think it's a good thing breaking them in my writing.
That's a quote from this interview.
There you go.
Which character do you like writing? Is it more fun or satisfying to write the villain or the protagonist? Or it could be the villain.
I think the most satisfying thing to write I'm not going to exactly answer your question, is when when the protagonist comes up against the villain, discovers it and succeeds over the villain. That's probably my most satisfying thing to write. However, you could look at Just One More. The villain never gets their comeuppance, and I liked it. I think every book is different. Every story is different. I do really like writing dialogue. I have a lot of fun with dialogue. I think the way people talk to each other in real life and in your books or stories is the thing that describes the person more than anything else does. The words they choose to use in different situations and how it moves the story forward. So my favorite part of writing, I would say, is dialogue. The other favorite part is first line and last line. When you get to the last line of the book, it's like, "Whoa, that's satisfying." And starting a new book is really fun. I like writing. That's kind of the bottom line. I like writing. And I like talking about it. And I like teaching classes about it. And I don't like marketing. I do it and I even teach about it, but I don't like it.
How many people say they like it?
Just people in advertising. Here I am babbling along for an hour, but I really don't like blowing my own horn. Marketing is so much of you have to read this book because it's really good and I wrote it. I hope I don't write that kind of ad. But basically, that's what you're doing when you market a book. So marketing is hard partly because it's blowing your own horn. And of course, we're taught not to do that.
It'd be nice if somebody else did it for us.
Yes, it really would. So
Yeah.
that's my other piece of advice to any writers that are watching this. Those 20 ads you get a day that says, for a mere $100, $65, $10,000, I will make your book a bestseller. They are all a bunch of hooey. Do
Right.
not fall into the trap. Take every free training you can get your hands on. Read every great book on writing, but don't fall into the trap. Just give me your money and I'm going to do 30 Facebook ads and you're going to be a bestseller because it's just not true.
And don't fall for webinars. It's always after 90 minutes and they'll say for $74.95
Has-
down.
Exactly. For almost all the free webinars, and you can pick up a lot from them, but the last part of it is always, and I've been very generous with you today, but if you take my course or buy this series of, you will learn everything you need to know. And it isn't true. They are very expensive. I think almost every writer falls into a little bit of it when they publish their first book.
Tamara Merrill, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Janet. It was really fun. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.